Tiare Lawrence, who comes from the island of Maui, who's here to talk about some of the water issues that they've encountered on their island and the strategies that they've used to kind of make things right. Hold on, just get you guys excited and activated. So we're really happy to have Tiare here. And I also wanted to introduce the students of the hula class who are going to be doing the opening chant for you folks. So please put your hands together for Tiare Lawrence. One last thing, make sure you sign it. Thank you.
Aloha. Aloha everyone. My name is Tiare. I'm from Maui. Very fortunate to be here today. Big, huge mahalo to Ola I Ka Community College and Brother Eric and Kumukua for inviting me to today. And I just feel very blessed and grateful to be able to share our story and our struggles on Maui with all of you today. Fortunately, a few years ago, a few of my friends and I started the Aloha I Ka Wai project. And what we wanted to do was create a way where we could start organizing events and concerts and marches to start raising awareness about the issues that was affecting our communities. And so what came out of the Aloha I Ka project was we had done a few concerts on Oahu, and we also organized the Aloha I Ka Unity marches on Waikiki and in Lahaina. And that was kind of somewhat of the beginning of my path as a activist or agitator. Try to, like, no, I want, can you call me like a community, like, engagement person? Not like, people like to characterize the activist as this radical, but as time evolved, I kind of just got so proud of being an activist. When you look up the definition of an activist, and you look up the history and the struggles that people had to go through, and when they took that step and became an activist and became a voice, some of the biggest accomplishments in the world came off of just a few people, whether it was civil rights or immigrant rights or women's rights. So, activist, she go. So, I rock that up. Anyhow, before I get started, I wanted to share a film that was produced by
Fair access to water is going to be one of the pivotal issues of our time.
The state has no legal right to sell that water.
The politics and the economics appear to trump the law.
Allowing a private corporation to make money off of the public trust is wrong.
Everything from this point forward, life ceases to exist.
The moral ability to be able to do what's right as opposed to just doing what's politically right.
These guys are breaking the law. They want us to share the water when they have all the water.
And the Iao Aquifer is suffering signs of stress.
Without fresh water, we can't survive.
And so the fact that like every person in Hawaii doesn't think like we need to figure out how to fix this issue is alarming.
It's a people issue. It's a human issue. It's a human right.
We think of ourselves as safe in our beautiful, isolated island home. Yet the balance of what has sustained this beauty has long been threatened. In Maui, where the last remaining sugar plantation has monopolized the water source for more than a century, frustrated community members, environmentalists, and those concerned about the supply of clean drinking water have said no more.
It took over 150 years for this water to be stolen.
This is the story of one community's fight to bring the laws to life. Water is life. To Hawaiians, wai, or fresh water, is the source, the sustenance, and the continuation of life.
In pre-contact times, water was a source of all life for our communities, and really it was respected and managed as a kinolau, or as a physical embodiment of Akua Kane.
The waters of the god Kane are located every place from the rising sun to the setting sun, from the uplands down to the ocean, the kualau or the squalls that are in the ocean, the clouds themselves, the mist, the springs that come out from the land itself were given names, given function, and were important. So it gives the hydrological cycle of water, which was understood by our kupuna generations upon generations ago.
If you look at the traditional rendition of an ahupua'a, the stream is in the middle of that. It not only provides water for drinking, but as water flows from maka to makai, it supports the ikala cultivation and feeds our ecosystems in the streams and in our nearshore marine areas.
Everyone took care of the stream. The konohiki kept aware of the welfare of all, so that the land will be productive, therefore the people are productive, and therefore the society is productive.
The wai from the streams trickle down to replenish the underground aquifers that we depend on today for our drinking water. This balance of humanity and nature worked for over 1,000 years.
With the arrival of Westerners in Hawaii beginning in the late 1700s, water, like many of our other natural and cultural resources, began to be commodified.
A lot of large tracts of land at the time of the Mahele were gotten by foreigners.
By 1880, Hawaii had 90 sugar plantations. This was a new kind of farming, not for sustenance, but for profit. Water became a commodity to be fought over, hoarded, and controlled.
The time of the Waikapu Sugar Company and Wailuku Sugar Company were establishing themselves here. They needed more water resources than the stream could actually give them. So that brought about the digging and the development of the Waihe'e Canal, which we commonly call the Waihe'e Ditch and the Speckles Ditch.
That allowed these companies to, in essence, monopolize the water resource by moving water from the wet side of the island, generally the windward sides of each island, over to the leeward side where there were major plantation lands situated.
What they did is they dug the ditch parallel to the ocean. And it's not complicated. They just dissected the river, threw everything in. They extract out of here over 60 billion gallons of white a year.
This water is diverted from its natural order and its natural flow of things into the land, and where man took it and apportioned it for whatever he believed he needed.
And so little by little, almost all of our streams in Hawaii were diverted, up to a point that over 90% of our streams in Hawaii have at least one diversion on them.
In 1978, when the Constitutional Convention made water resource preservation a constitutional mandate, it stated specifically that all public natural resources, including water, are to be held in trust by the state for the benefit of the people. In order to ensure the wise and proper use of our most precious resource, the Water Code established the Commission on Water Resource Management, tasked with managing the fair distribution of the public's water in accordance with the law. Communities who had been negatively impacted by the diversions for over a century found hope in the newly formed commission. This commission would soon be tested.
In Waihole, 1993, Oahu Sugar announced that it was going to be closing, and this sparked what became the largest battle over water.
And that case was the first time where you're going to have a really huge user of water, which was Oahu Sugar Company, going out of business. The law does not allow you to keep it if you're not using it. So the issue became, what are you going to do with all that water?
So everybody who was anybody wanted some of that water. Over 20 different parties said that they needed that water. All of them, except for a small coalition of folks from the windward side, wanted to continue taking that water for a host of commercial and other uses.
The economic power resided with the commercial interests. Big names like Campbell Estate, Castle and Cook, Robinson, and Del Monte. When the final vote came from the commission ordering the water continue serving the agricultural giants on the leeward side, the windward party's hope in the commission had been shattered. Disappointed but not defeated, they appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court responded in favor of the windward parties and strongly reprimanded the Water Commission. After years of appeals, the windward parties prevailed.
And so Waihole was very significant because it was the first time ever in Hawaii's history that water was ordered restored to the streams and communities of origin.
After the Supreme Court decision in Waihole, Hawaiians living in Wailuanui and Keanai on Maui filed petitions to restore their streams.
We are in the Aupua of Wailuanui, and right now we are located at the Mulivai, Wailua River that enters into the ocean. The Mulivai is an important place for all streams and rivers. The Mulivai is where the fish reproduce.
These waters feed the taro patches of Keanai. Those waters return back to the kai and nourishes the kai with that brackish formula that enables all the polyps, all the fry, all these things to grow, which feed bigger fish and bigger fish and bigger fish, and turn this whole place into a feeding bowl.
Most silverfish, ahole, even papio come in here. Moi, mullet, all your silver. Your palani, your eninui, which are darker fish, will come in here. Your kumu will come in here. And the almighty honu will come in here too. This is our ice box with water. Without water, it don't work.
Although water flows in Wailua River today, Went and others continue their fight to restore 19 more streams in East Maui.
The law is that nobody owns the water. The state holds the water in trust for the people of Hawaii. Water is to be used for the benefit of the public.
Although the public trust doctrine calls for the state's protection of natural resources, the state of Hawaii continues to issue permits for the removal, on average, of 164 million gallons of water a day from more than 100 streams in East Maui.
So HNS grows sugarcane on about 36,000 acres here in the Central Valley, from sea level all the way up to 1,000 feet in elevation, from Maliko Gulch all the way to Kihei. It's a pretty large land area. HNS and EMI own the distribution, the collection, distribution, and conveyance system.
The water collectively brought to the central sugar fields of Maui by EMI for HCNS's uses averages 164 million gallons a day. It can be as much as, during the rainy days, 450 million gallons a day. Just to give you some perspective, all of Oahu typically consumes an average of about 160 million gallons a day. So on Maui, one company is able to divert as much as all of Oahu with 80% of the population.
Now the ditch capacity is 400 million gallons per day on a rainy day, 160 on a daily basis. So each tributary river falls in a 400 million gallon ditch capacity with a perfect grade. So it's moving.
But moving in the wrong direction. For thousands of years, streams flowed Mauka to Makai, giving life to everything in their path. No more.
So we'll see the fresh water coming in the Ka Wai, and then all of a sudden stopping. Above us, there is wealth, there is life. Below us, everything from this point forward, life ceases to exist. If you started in Kahului, 52 miles into Hana of these type of things.
In order to ensure control of the resource, in 2001, Alexander and Baldwin and East Maui Irrigation filed an application with the Board of Land and Natural Resources seeking a multi-decade lease to continue transporting water from streams in East Maui. While HCNS enjoys the use of this public trust for a quarter of a penny per 1,000 gallons, farmers are paying the county $1.15 per 1,000 gallons for their irrigated water use, an amount that is 460 times greater than these large companies.
Clearly, some of that water is wasted. By EMI's own estimates, I think a collection system can seep and evaporate upwards of 25 to 39 million gallons a day. Under HCNS's estimates, they have 36 reservoirs, 31 of which are unlined. That can lose anywhere from 16 to 23 million gallons a day.
I believe HNS has been very proactive when it comes to looking at ways to conserve water, to minimize anything that could be construed as waste or losses.
So we're in a pasture on the Ola side of the island. These are the walls of the reservoir. Behind that is all the water, and so now this is one spot where that water is leaking out. Yeah, so imagine how big this reservoir is and how many other places like this exist where it's seeping out. You can guesstimate how much water is flowing out of here. At least 5 gallons a minute.
We have a very robust maintenance program to maintain the lining of ditches, to minimize seepage. So we don't consider any losses from the system as waste. We see that as just a return to the natural cycle, whether it be through rainfall or seepage.
No. Supreme Court expressly addressed the question about whether water that gets put out on the land and recharges the aquifer is not waste. It said that's waste.
So you can't waste millions of gallons of water a day and then say it's okay, because indirectly it may be benefiting the aquifer through recharge, you know. HCNS's system travels across multiple places, and so it's taking water from one place and running it along multiple ahupua and possibly recharging it there. So it's not recharging the place where it's coming from. Furthermore, there are many folks who could be using the water instead of it being wasted through, you know, an ill-managed system.
We've been farming this 36,000 acres here for quite some time. We know pretty well what our requirements are and where we can get water to optimally grow and to maximize the yields that we have. Water is actually the single most important determinant to deciding what kind of yield you're going to have on sugarcane.
Allowing a private corporation for profit to make money off of the public trust. He's wrong. Who pay the price? The people pay the price. Native Hawaiians and the public trust. They're taking the resources, treating it as a commodity, and selling it all for profit.
The law says that the state can dispose of surplus water. How can they be disposing of surplus water in the matter of these leases when the people who lived there, who had appurtenant rights and riparian rights, didn't have enough water? By definition, there's no surplus water if these folks don't have enough water and they have the rights to the water.
If you total up all of the water that they're seeking to restore to the streams, it constitutes an amount that is less than the estimated waste and from evaporation and seepage that EMI and HCNS have estimated. Their figures, not mine.
While East Maui residents continue their struggle to hold the state accountable to the laws that protect the public trust, residents in Central and West Maui are fighting to restore flow to their streams, which directly relates to the health of the island's most important aquifer. Wailuku Sugar Company, now Wailuku Water Company, and HCNS have drained the four great waters, poetically known as Nawai'eha.
If you fly into the Kahului airport and you look Mauka, that's Nawai'eha stretched out before you. Nawai'eha is sort of one side that supports HCNS, and the communities in East Maui are the other side of that. And so they drain all of these waters from these streams and communities for their private financial profit.
Waikapu is a dead stream. 100% of the main portion of our Kahawai is completely diverted.
This was called Wailuku River until 1920. Then after that, it became Yao Stream. I call it Yao Trickle, and that's what it is today.
Wailuku Sugar Company became Wailuku Agribusiness, which then became Wailuku Water Company, and they sold off all of their lands and retained their ditch systems and became, they literally became a water company. Never mind that water in Hawaii is a public trust.
This is all they do now is sell water. Although they say they're not selling water, they have delivery agreements that are by the 1,000 gallon.
The streams that once fed Nawai'eha are moved out of their natural flow, private interests outweighing a public trust. Much like the ditch systems in East Maui, the communities of Nawai'eha saw their water moving for private interests.
Water that feeds a lot of the sugar, the remaining sugar fields of HCNS plantation comes from Waihe'e, and some from Iao through the Waihe'e ditch and the Spreckles ditch. And it feeds into Waikapu, and they capture it, mix it all together, and that water is what goes to feed reservoir number 1. A small portion of that water from reservoir number 1 goes to these Kuleana lands. A large portion goes to my tropical plantation. The rest of the water goes to the Kahili Golf Course and Kamehameha Golf Course.
One would think on an island plagued with drought for years, and streams having gone without for more than 100 years, that those privileged enough to be entrusted with its use would be diligent with it.
And that's kind of how our case started, the dumping in Pohakea Gulch. So Pohakea was at one time a perennial stream where you had Mauka to Makai flow. That water used to feed into Kealia wetlands or fish pond, same as Waikapu did. Pohakea has been dry for probably 100 years. Wailuku Sugar and HCNS, or Wailuku Water Company, they were dumping that water in the evening time. They were opening up the ditch because there was an excess of water, and they were dumping the water into Pohakea Gulch, and it was just flowing out into empty fields. It was a water waste complaint.
And we did find through the discovery process that there were a few areas where as much as, I think it was 14,000 gallons a day per acre was basically just being dumped on very sandy soil. Is that agriculture? No, that's justification to hold on for water banking. During the Nawai'eha case, it was shown that 7 million gallons a day leaked from one reservoir into the Kahului aquifer. That water originated in Waihe'e and Iao Stream. So the question has to be made, shouldn't it really be in the stream and be recharging the Iao aquifer?
During the contested case hearing, the manager from HCNS testified that Waihe'e Ditch and Spreckles Ditch loses 3 to 4 million gallons of water a day, either in just pure leakage or seepage. The reservoir, Wiley Reservoir, loses 6 to 8 million gallons a day.
In Hawaii, the vast majority of our water resources have been taken and continue to be held by plantation interests or their subsidiaries.
While HCNS and Wailuku Water Company were claiming all the water being diverted was necessary to sustain their operation, stockholders were being sent information that water was available for sale.
In April of 2009, our hearing officer, Dr. Miike, ordered about half the water that was diverted returned to our streams and communities. Now, what we then saw was a huge backlash by HCNS and their supporters. They immediately played their economic trump card and basically threatened the Water Commission with an ultimatum and told them that if the commission finalized that draft decision, that would be the end result and that over 800 people would be laid off. And so the Water Commission bowed to political pressure, and when the final decision was issued in June of 2010, they only restored 12.5 million gallons to 2 of Mawai'eha's 4 streams.
What ends up happening is both Iao and Waikapu end up getting no water. So the folks that live below the diversions, who live on their family lands, get nothing, essentially. Once again, they fail to do what's in the best interest of the people of Hawaii and Native Hawaiians in particular.
And so OHA, in partnership with community groups Huio Nawai'eha and Maui Tamara, appealed that decision to the Hawaii Supreme Court. And in August of 2012, we were very fortunate to secure a victory. Nawai'eha was very significant, and we're pleased with how far we've come, but we still have a long way to go.
So interestingly enough, even after both Waihe'e and Waiahu had water restored, 12.5 million gallons years later, HCNS is more profitable than ever, and there have been no massive layoffs. The Hawaii Supreme Court has reversed the Water Commission many times, and the last 8 decisions to come before the Hawaii Supreme Court, 7 of them have been overturned.
The laws still exist, but people are not following the laws. And the administration that is supposed to assure compliance of the laws, for some reason, don't want to hold private corporations accountable to these particular laws. The laws, as you said, still exist, but the chiefs of this time, the chief administrators, the chief managers, they're not living up to their fiduciary duties and responsibilities, especially for caring for the people. It's abhorrent that we have to pay for water, which is a public trust. It's abhorrent that a private corporation can come in and control lands and all of those resources within it for their own profit and their own benefit. And the majority of that profit not be returned to the land, and they're living large. They can afford to share.
Irresponsible use of the water in the most isolated islands on Earth have produced devastating effects. Skippy Hau is an aquatic biologist, and he knows that even when intentions are good, things can go horribly awry.
We're on the island of Maui, and this is Iao Stream. By channelizing the stream, they basically force the water. Whatever water flows onto the island gets what we call shunted out.
But there is an unintended consequence of this safeguard against flooding. A natural stream bed allows water to trickle down into the underground aquifer. When you cover the stream bed with concrete, it pushes more water into the ocean faster. This causes a disruption in the ecological balance, which has put native species at risk. Streams in Hawaii are home to a unique variety of native fish and shrimp, many of which are found nowhere else in the world. Understanding their dependence on the flowing stream as the corridor to live out their life cycle has driven Skippy to monitor these species, namely the o'opu, hihiwai, and opai. These animals live in 2 different environments during their life stages. Eggs are laid in the stream, then are swept downstream to the ocean, where they live for a time only to return to the stream, often climbing waterfalls, to return to the valley where they lay larvae and continue the cycle. In order to breed and survive, these species must be able to make their way from ocean all the way up into the valleys, much like salmon swimming upstream.
I wanted to find out when the stream flows, are animals trying to come up this stream? One day I came and the stream was flowing, and then what I saw on the top of the water was these streaks on the water. And so what I did was I got an aquarium net, I collect them, and they were opie. So that's one of the first things I started studying. By the second or third day, if the stream is flowing, then I'll have different fishes. Normally we have 5 different oopu. 3 of them are a little bit better climbers, so we kind of get to watch them come up the stream. So those 3 species will also climb up on the waterfall.
As they make their way upstream, they hit a wall, namely a diversion of the stream that stops their migration cold. What usually happens is that the water flow stops.
Then the stream dries up, and so there'll be all these pools. And so what happens is the animals will kind of aggregate in the pools. Basically, the concrete channel warms up, so the water temperature is over 90 degrees, and so the animals get boiled.
In the meantime, Hau does the only thing he can. He scoops up the tiny creatures and carries them above the diversion himself.
I'll be able to collect 10,000 opie inside the concrete channel, and they're still trying to come up. They have no idea that the stream is about to stop, but I'll collect them inside the puddle here, and then I'll transport them up to the state park. By me releasing animals in the streams, it's not going to ensure that the animals survive. It's just basically going to leave it to nature. I'm hoping they get up into the valley, and then that they will reproduce, and then hopefully send more larvae out for the next generation.
The fight for stream restoration is not just an issue concerning farming communities and native species survival, but for those living in Maui, it's a concern that affects everyone's water supply.
The Iao Aquifer is the most important water resource on the whole island of Maui. The reason why is that it has the geological conditions to store water effectively. It has a cap, a limestone cap. 50% of the population of Maui depends on the water from that one aquifer. It's not a big aquifer. That is the place we really need to take care.
And we recharge our aquifer by putting water back into the stream that percolates into that groundwater lens, so that those that poke the straws here, there, and everywhere that want to use that water are able to continue to pump water up.
USGS studies show that about 12 million gallons a day would be returned to the Iao Aquifer in a productive zone. And the Iao Aquifer is suffering signs of stress, and the scientists know it. The amount of fresh water that is now available above the salt water has decreased. You know, the freshwater levels were like 20, 24 feet. Now, after 30 years of pumping, they're 10 feet, 11 feet. That's a dramatic change.
Water use in the world has grown at more than twice the rate of population increase in the last century. Issues like climate change, water privatization, and scarcity of clean water have led to a global consciousness and concerted effort to protect natural resources.
Our dependence on oil, shipments 2,500 miles to get food, etc., etc. How long can we deserve that luxury of continuing down that road without major disruptions should something catastrophic happen?
We're importing food by the tons. We're even importing water.
We need to take back the delivery systems, but have people who know how to run them, make sure the farmers get the water they deserve. They're kind of the pawns in this game.
In the long term, we need to address things like food security and how water can address that and enhance food security by increasing the ability of local farmers to grow foods in their communities. So when are we going to turn to longer term solutions to advance the sustainability of life in Hawaii?
As we all know, global warming, less and less rain. And when it does rain, it doesn't rain like it used to. They come and they go quickly. Life is changing.
We know that rainfall in the last 25 years has decreased 25%. That's a large percentage on Maui. We have the science. We actually have the traditional knowledge to depend upon, and yet both of those are often pushed over to the side, and we're making purely quote-unquote economic decisions that really are not good economic decisions because they're so short-sighted. They're about the economy of the next 5 minutes and the next 5 years rather than the economy of the next 50, 100, 500 years.
You know, Hawaii's resources, water resources, are declining at an even more rapid pace than before. And so it's even more important for the public to be vigilant about making sure that the Water Commission is doing what's in our best interest.
My main argument is that we just want to grow food. That's all we want to do. We want to be able to feed our community, feed our families, and feed them with a crop that sustained a population similar to that we are in today. And a crop that is healthy for us, a crop that we're connected to spiritually, and kalo is that crop.
This has been a legacy that people pass on to their kids. These are generational struggles that take forever to resolve.
What kind of life you want to live? You want to live in a little box. Once upon a time, the Hawaiians did this, the Hawaiians did that. That's what's at stake, man. It's the instinct, it's the extinction of our wairua, of our spirit. Yeah. You take away the life, you're going to take away the spirit.
Hawaii's water future is ours to determine. We are at a critical juncture. We can continue as we are and do nothing, or we can take action now to protect this precious resource for today and tomorrow. Ola I Ka Wai. We live because of our water. Water is life.